The alarm went off at 6:47 a.m. Not the sharp, urgent kind meant to shock you awake. Just a gentle electronic pulse, carefully designed by someone who believed mornings should be negotiated, not fought. Ethan Novak let it ring. He lay on his back, eyes closed, listening to the apartment breathe. Pipes ticked softly behind the walls. Somewhere below, a door slammed. A car engine turned over, hesitated, then caught. The city was already awake, already doing what it always did. He shut the alarm off without looking at the clock. 34 years old. Systems analyst. Divorced. No children. Those facts felt less like identity and more like metadata. Accurate. Impersonal, rarely questioned. Above his bed, a thin crack ran through the ceiling plaster. It had been there since the day he moved in, branching slightly each winter as the building settled. Ethan tracked its progress without meaning to, like a slow, inevitable countdown. He sat up and reached for his phone. For a moment, just a moment, he didn't unlock it. Later, that pause would return to him with uncomfortable clarity. But right now it meant nothing. Just a hesitation. A breath before habit resumed control. No notifications. No emergency alerts. No messages from his ex-wife, which was normal. No messages from anyone, which was also normal. He showered. He shaved. He made coffee strong enough to hurt and drank it standing at the counter, staring through the window at a sky that hadn't yet decided what kind of day it wanted to be. A tablet murmured the morning news. Markets reacting cautiously. Officials stress resilience. No immediate cause for concern. Ethan didn't listen. He worked with systems for a living. He knew how often the word resilient was used when people were afraid. At 7:42, he locked the apartment and stepped into the hallway. The elevator display was dark again. Of course, he muttered, already turning toward the stairs. On the third floor, Mrs. Kovac emerged from her apartment carrying a reusable shopping bag. Lavender. Cabbage. A lifetime of routine distilled into a scent. "Good morning," she said. "Morning," Ethan replied. They nodded to each other, two satellites sharing an orbit without ever colliding. Outside, the air was cold and sharp, the kind of cold that felt clean. Traffic flowed with practiced confidence. Pedestrians moved in parallel lines, eyes down, ears occupied, fingers scrolling through lives happening somewhere else. Overhead, a delivery drone buzzed past, briefly blocking the sun. Everything worked. The metro station swallowed him whole at 8:03 a.m. The platform was full but orderly. Digital signs glowed reassuringly. 2 minutes until the next train. Then the lights flickered. Just once. A brief dip in brightness, subtle enough that half the people didn't notice. Enough that Ethan did. He looked up instinctively. The lights returned. The sign refreshed itself. No alarm. No explanation. 2 minutes became 3. A voice crackled over the speaker system. "Attention passengers. There is a minor delay. Thank you for your patience." The voice was too calm. Ethan felt a faint tightening in his chest. Delays happened all the time, but the tone was wrong. Over-neutral. Carefully measured. He checked his phone. A message had just come through from his office group chat. "It ops. Anyone else seeing packet loss across the northern nodes?" Ethan frowned. "On my way in." "How bad?" 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then nothing. The train arrived late, its brakes squealing a fraction louder than usual. Doors opened. People poured in, relief washing through the platform like a tide that retreated too quickly. As the train pulled into the tunnel, signal dropped, normal for this stretch. But when it should have come back, it didn't. No bars. No data. No emergency icon. Across from Ethan, a teenage girl frowned at her phone and tapped the screen twice. A man near the door lifted his device higher, as if signal might fall from the ceiling. Someone laughed. Guessed the internet finally died. A few people chuckled. Ethan didn't. Because systems didn't fail like this. Not quietly. Not cleanly. Not everywhere at once. The train slowed. Stopped. Lights dimmed again. This time, everyone noticed. The train did not stop abruptly. It slowed the way a thoughtful person hesitates before speaking. Carefully, deliberately, as if hoping no one would notice. But people always notice when something that should move forward doesn't. The carriage swayed gently and came to rest between stations. The tunnel lights outside the windows glowed a dull amber, stretching into darkness in both directions. The doors remained closed. 5 seconds passed. Then 10. A woman near the pole cleared her throat. Someone shifted their backpack. A man pressed the button by the door, even though he knew it wouldn't work. The speaker crackled. "Attention passengers. Please remain calm. We are experiencing a temporary technical issue." The phrase landed badly. Temporary. Technical. Issue. Words designed to sound harmless, stacked together like sandbags against panic. Ethan felt his pulse pick up. He glanced around the carriage, reading faces the way he read system logs, looking for anomalies. The teenage girl had stopped tapping her phone. She was staring at her reflection in the dark glass. A man in a suit checked his watch twice in quick succession, as if time might have changed without asking him. Minutes passed. The air grew warmer. Not because of temperature, because of tension. Anxiety is weight. It presses outward, filling spaces people used to ignore. Someone pressed the emergency intercom. A dull tone responded. Then silence. Ethan stood up before he fully decided to. "Hey," he said, raising his voice just enough to cut through the murmurs. "This happens sometimes. The system will reset. We're safe." A lie? Maybe. A guess? Definitely. But silence was worse. A few people nodded. Someone exhaled loudly, relieved to outsource belief. Another announcement came through, distorted, delayed. "We are working to restore service. Please remain inside the train." The message repeated. Exactly the same. Ethan sat back down slowly. Looping announcements meant fallback mode. Fallback mode meant loss of live control. Something upstream had failed. After 12 minutes, long enough to change the emotional temperature of the carriage, the lights brightened fully, and the train lurched forward, as if startled awake. Applause broke out. Nervous laughter. Someone made a joke too loudly. Relief flooded the space, shallow and premature. At the next station, half the passengers rushed out, abandoning plans, schedules suddenly negotiable. Ethan stayed. He needed to get to work. He needed a terminal, a real network, something solid. When he finally exited the station, the city above ground felt misaligned. Traffic lights blinked yellow at an intersection that normally pulsed with machine-perfect rhythm. Cars hesitated, drivers negotiating with hand gestures and eye contact, skills humanity hadn't practiced seriously in years. A delivery truck idled in the middle of the road, its driver pacing, phone pressed to his ear, shaking his head again and again. Ethan checked his phone. 1 bar. Then none. At his office building, the glass entrance refused to recognize his badge. Inside the lobby, visible through the door, a security guard argued with someone who clearly wanted to leave. Ethan knocked. Hard. The guard unlocked the door a fraction. "No access," he said. "Systems are down." "All of them?" Ethan asked. The guard laughed once, sharp and humorless. "Every damn one." Inside, the building felt hollow without its usual hum. No elevator chime. No badge beeps. Emergency lights glowed faintly, like the place was already preparing for something worse. Ethan took the stairs 2 at a time. The operations floor was crowded, too crowded. People stood instead of sitting, hovering near desks, talking over each other in low, urgent voices. Monitors glowed red with alerts Ethan had only ever seen during drills. He dropped his bag and woke his workstation. The dashboard filled with warnings. Not 1. Not 10. Hundreds. Nodes unreachable. Backups failing to negotiate. Heartbeat signals missing across regions that weren't even supposed to be connected. Someone whispered, "That can't be right." Ethan zoomed into a dead node. No corruption. No overload. No spike. Just silence. Like a wire cut by the universe itself. "Is this a cyber attack?" someone asked. "No," said Mira, the senior engineer. Her voice was steady, but her face wasn't. "Attacks leave fingerprints. This is empty." Ethan swallowed. "Everything depends on time," he said. "If systems can't agree on when they are, they stop trusting each other." Mira looked at him sharply. "You're saying the clocks are wrong. I'm saying the clocks are gone." Phones began ringing. Desk phones. Old analog lines no one trusted anymore. People picked them up, voices rising. "Emergency services can't route calls. Power substations aren't syncing. Who's coordinating this?" No one answered. Ethan's phone vibrated. 1 bar of signal. A message from an unknown number. "Are you seeing this too?" Before he could respond, another alert appeared. This one unmistakably official. National Infrastructure Alert. Intermittent failures across communications, transit, and energy systems. Cause unknown. Stand by for instructions. Stand by. The worst instruction imaginable. Outside, sirens began to rise. Not together, but one by one, like voices testing whether it was time to scream. Ethan leaned back in his chair, the weight of the moment finally settling into his chest. This was no longer a delay. This was the first hour of something that would be remembered, and it wasn't done yet. By late morning, the city had lost its rhythm. Not collapsed, not panicked, just unsynchronized. Ethan noticed it first in the way sound traveled. Sirens overlapped without pattern. Shouts echoed longer than they should have. Without the usual background hum of perfectly timed machines, human noise filled the gaps, and it was uneven, emotional, alive. From the office windows, the streets below looked unfamiliar. Traffic lights had gone dark entirely at several intersections. Police officers stood in the middle of the road, arms raised, movements exaggerated and almost theatrical, trying to replace algorithms with authority and muscle. Buses sat idle at odd angles, doors open, drivers standing outside, talking to passengers face-to-face instead of through glass and speakers. Inside the office, voices layered over one another like static. We've lost telemetry from the eastern grid. Backup generators are desynchronizing. Cell towers are active but not routing. Who's coordinating this? No answer came. Mira slammed her palm onto a desk. Listen, she said. The room quieted. Not fully, but enough. This isn't localized. We're seeing failures in systems that aren't even supposed to talk to each other. She paused. That means either something fundamental is broken, or we're missing something obvious. Like what? Someone asked. Ethan stood. Like time, he said. Every face turned toward him. Synchronization, he continued. GPS clocks. Network time servers. Distributed consensus. If the clocks drift too far apart, or disappear entirely, systems don't just slow down. They refuse to act. Silence. Mira stared at him. You're saying the systems are fine, but they can't agree on when they are? Yes, Ethan said. And when systems don't trust time, they don't trust each other. A junior engineer laughed once, sharply. GPS doesn't just go down. Ethan didn't respond, because his phone was vibrating again. A message from his sister. Anna, are you okay? Hospital's on generators. Half our systems are offline. His fingers moved fast. I'm okay. Stay there. Don't leave unless told. 3 dots appeared. Froze. Disappeared. Signal gone. At 9:41 a.m., the building's power dipped. Not out. Just enough. Enough to make everyone stop talking at once. Emergency lighting flared brighter. Somewhere deep in the building, generators began to roar, low and steady, like something large waking up reluctantly. Then the fire alarm sounded. Not because of smoke. Because the system no longer trusted its sensors. Evacuate, the automated voice said, calm and absolute. Please evacuate the building. Mira swore. Everyone out. Grab what you can. We're blind here. What about coordination? Someone shouted. With whom? She snapped. There is no center. Ethan packed his laptop, hesitated, then reached into a drawer and pulled out an old handheld radio. Issued years ago for emergency drills no one had taken seriously. Outside, the city felt tighter. Shops were closing. Not all, but enough to change the mood. Metal shutters slammed down. Handwritten signs appeared in windows. Cash only. Temporarily closed. No power. At a supermarket, a line wrapped around the building. Voices rose. A security guard stood at the door, hands open, repeating rules no one wanted to hear. Ethan walked fast. He wasn't thinking clearly anymore, just moving towards something that felt necessary. Toward the hospital. Without buses or reliable traffic, the distance stretched. Without notifications or updates, every block felt heavier than the last. At an intersection, a crowd had gathered around a bus stalled sideways across the road. The steering locked, the driver shouted. Then push it, someone yelled back. With what? The driver snapped. Hope. A woman nearby cried quietly, phone clutched to her chest like a broken compass. Ethan stepped away. This wasn't collapse. It was worse. It was a city discovering that its intelligence lived somewhere else, and that somewhere else had gone dark. At the hospital, generators rattled and stabilized. The emergency entrance was packed. Doctors moved with practiced urgency, but their eyes kept darting to dark screens and unresponsive machines. Anna found him near the stairwell. They've canceled all non-emergency procedures, she said. We're prioritizing by hand. By hand. How long can you do this? Ethan asked. She shook her head. Depends what this is. Overhead, a loudspeaker crackled. Attention staff. Communications remain unstable. Assume no external support. No external support. Ethan felt the phrase settle heavily in his chest. Because that wasn't just about the hospital. It was about everything. The hospital shifted into something older. Not chaos. Something more deliberate, more human. Whiteboards replaced dashboards. Dry erase markers squeaked as nurses wrote patient statuses by hand, relearning the weight of letters. Paper charts emerged from cabinets that hadn't been opened in years, their edges soft with dust. Elevators moved only when someone with a physical key allowed them to. And even then, they hesitated, as if uncertain of their own position. Ethan stood near a wall outlet where nothing charged anymore and listened. A surgeon argued with a technician about imaging delays. A respiratory therapist counted breaths aloud instead of trusting a screen. A security guard asked, 3 times, whether police were coming. No one answered that last question. Anna pulled Ethan aside near the stairwell. They want someone who understands systems, she said. Not software. Systems. Power. Dependencies. Timing. Ethan rubbed his face. I don't work in hospitals. They don't need a hospital worker, she replied. They need someone who knows how things fail. She was right. He hated that she was right. In the basement, the air smelled of oil and hot metal. Generators lined the walls, vibrating through the concrete floor. A folding table served as command center, covered in paper maps, radios, and half-empty coffee cups. A man with a municipal jacket looked up. You the analyst? Ethan nodded. Our machines keep rejecting commands, the man said. Like they don't trust us. They don't, Ethan replied. Not without time. Confusion flickered across faces. Everything here depends on synchronization, Ethan continued. Monitors, pumps, alarms. They need a shared reference. Right now, every device thinks it's alone. So fix the clocks, someone said. Ethan shook his head. You can't fix global time, but you can cheat locally. He scanned the room and pointed. A mechanical wall clock ticked steadily above a breaker panel, springs and gears, immune to satellites. That, he said, that becomes time. Someone frowned. That clock's off. Then we're all off together, Ethan replied. Consistency matters more than accuracy. They moved quickly. Technicians adjusted settings. Nurses learned new rhythms. Someone taped a handwritten sign beneath the clock. Hospital time. And slowly, imperfectly, systems began to cooperate again. Not smoothly, not safely, but enough. A monitor beeped, correctly this time. A ventilator accepted its parameters without protest. A nurse smiled and immediately looked guilty for doing so. Manual mode was unforgiving. Mistakes mattered again. At 12:14 p.m., a baby was delivered safely on the 3rd floor. Its first cry echoed through the ward, sharp and defiant. People paused. Someone wiped their eyes. At 12:47, a cardiac alarm misfired due to clock drift. A nurse caught it in time. There were no do-overs. Outside, the city grew louder. Helicopters passed overhead, military by the sound. Sirens rose and fell without coordination. Smoke curled faintly from the industrial district. Ethan stepped outside for air. The street had transformed. Not panicked, but alert. People talked to strangers. Radios played. Chalkboards appeared in cafes listing news heard by word of mouth. Power unstable North Sector. Airports grounded. No official statement. His handheld radio crackled. Regional command, loss of satellite timing confirmed. Confirmed. The word landed hard. Recommend establishment of local time authority. Ethan closed his eyes. They were all doing the same thing now, breaking time into islands, hoping they'd be enough. Anna joined him outside and handed him water. You look terrible, she said. Progress, he replied weakly. How bad is it, she asked. Ethan stared at the street. This isn't a blackout, he said. It's a stress test for civilization. At that moment, every phone within sight vibrated. Not a message. An alert tone, raw and unfamiliar. People froze. Ethan's screen lit up. Emergency broadcast, all regions. Global satellite timing services unavailable. Cause under investigation. This is not an attack. Maintain local order. The phrase "this is not an attack" was underlined. No one spoke. because no one believed reassurance mattered anymore. The afternoon did not arrive all at once. It leaked into the city through cracks in routine, through shadows that no longer agreed on their length. Without synchronized clocks, noon became a suggestion rather than a fact. People judged time by hunger, by fatigue, by the angle of the sun reflected off glass. By mid-afternoon, the word outage had disappeared. It was replaced by situation, then by event, then, quietly, by today. Ethan stayed at the hospital longer than he meant to. Each problem solved uncovered two more waiting behind it. Generator fuel calculations had to be done by hand. Medication schedules were rewritten around hospital time. Staff rotated manually, tracking rest with clipboards and trust. Every decision now carried weight. Who received imaging first? Who waited? Who was stable enough to risk delay? Manual systems didn't hide consequences. At 2:30, approximately, an ambulance arrived without warning, lights dead, siren silent. The driver jumped out and shouted details because radios failed him. The patient was stabilized, but barely. Ethan felt exhaustion settle behind his eyes, heavy and insistent. Then his radio crackled. Seeking technical volunteers, civic coordination point. Old Municipal Hall. He hesitated. Anna noticed. They need you, she said. They need someone, Ethan replied. She met his eyes. You already are that someone. They hugged, briefly, awkwardly. The kind of hug that assumed there would be another later. Outside, the walk to the civic center felt longer than it should have. Without transit, without alerts, distance returned to its original meaning. Ethan passed streets that felt strangely older. People sitting on stoops, talking, watching the street as if rediscovering it. At a small square, a man stood on a bench with a battery-powered radio, repeating updates loudly, twice each time. Rails suspended nationwide. Military assisting logistics. No estimate for restoration. Ethan kept walking. The civic center buzzed with urgency. Folding tables, paper maps, handwritten labels taped to walls. People leaned over documents like monks reconstructing lost knowledge. A woman with tired eyes and a mayor's pin waved him over. You understand timing systems? She asked. Yes. Good, she said. Because every district is improvising. We need a common reference, or we'll tear ourselves apart. Ethan took a breath. You don't need accurate time, he said. You need shared time. They built it fast. A terrestrial atomic clock at a research lab, one of the few not reliant on satellites, became the anchor. Couriers were dispatched on motorcycles and bicycles, carrying calibration instructions and radios. It wasn't elegant, but it was human. As dusk approached, parts of the city found rhythm again. Some lights returned. Others stayed dark. Curfews were suggested, not enforced. People obeyed anyway. Ethan stood on the civic center steps as the sun dipped low, painting buildings amber. For the first time all day, he allowed himself to feel something besides urgency. Grief, for a world that had trusted its abstractions too much. Hope, for how quickly people adapted when those abstractions vanished. His phone buzzed. A message finally pushed through. Unknown. Partial global sync restored. Experimental. Ethan typed back immediately. Do not force it. Let local systems lead. No response came. Night fell unevenly. Stars appeared, sharper than they'd been in years. Ethan walked home. His building was dark, but alive. Candles flickered in windows. A grill burned outside. Someone serving soup to neighbors learning each other's names. Mrs. Kovac sat by the entrance. Long day, she said. The longest, Ethan replied. She smiled gently. We'll manage. Upstairs, Ethan lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling cracked by candlelight. It no longer looked like damage. It looked like a map. Tomorrow, systems might return. Satellites might resynchronize. Time might become invisible again. But today would remain. The day the network went silent. And people remembered how to listen.